Hello everybody and happy November. It is officially the beginning of a new month, and that means it is time to reflect on all the books that I read in October. I read some wonderful books and I can't wait to tell you all about them. It is a beautiful sunny day, so I'm just so excited to sit here in the sunshine and tell you about these fantastic books. I would also love to know what books you read in October, so please feel free to let me know in the comments. I always love seeing what you guys are reading as well. The first book I believe I started in September and then I finished it in October, and that was Inspire by Ben Fogle. I was gifted this by my mother-in-law last Christmas, and I started reading it physically, and then I switched to the audiobook because Ben Fogle narrates the audiobook himself. This is a nonfiction about Ben Fogle's different experiences in nature and all the different trips and travels and expeditions that he's been on. He traveled to the top of Mount Everest, he kayaked across, I believe it was the Atlantic Ocean, and he talks about how all of his experiences have shaped how he views life, and it's kind of his own reflections on what he learned doing those different things, what he learned about the natural world, what he learned about other people in a response to his experiences in nature. I really enjoyed it. He did a great job narrating it. It always feels like a podcast, I guess, when you're listening to a nonfiction book that's narrated by the author, and I always enjoy doing that. So I highly recommend it if it sounds interesting to you. And then the next book that I read was my first book that I read in England, and this is the book that Leon surprised me with when I got here. Oh God, it has become, I truly think, my favorite book of the year, and that is Sally Rooney's Intermezzo. This book, I could talk about it for ages. I truly feel like this is Sally Rooney's best work. I am a huge Sally Rooney fan. My favorite has always been Normal People, but I feel like the complaints that some people have about Normal People is done even better in this book, and I feel like even if you don't love her other works, you have a really great chance of loving this story. This is a story about two brothers who have recently lost their father, and they don't have a very close relationship with their mother. Their parents divorced before the father passed away, and it's about this sibling dynamic and how they handle their relationships, romantic and also friendships. And it's really highlighting how grief can affect relationships, and it's also about the brothers as brothers. It was such a beautiful depiction of siblinghood and how you can kind of view your sibling or view other people in your life in a way that's kind of skewed because of your childhood experiences with them and just growing up with them. I truly feel like Sally Rooney is a master of understanding humanity and human emotions and just being alive. She understands people so well, and the way that she writes about them is breathtaking, absolutely breathtaking. There were so many moments while I was reading this book that I nearly dog-eared every single page, top and bottom. The second that I finished it, I wanted to read it again. Also, the ending, I think, was the most beautiful, touching, heartfelt ending that I have ever read. I just loved everything about this book. Also, can we talk about Alexei, Ivan's dog, Alexei, and I loved his character. It's one of these kinds of dogs. I have been seeing those dogs everywhere. He's on the back. Here we go. One of those. I've been seeing them everywhere here in Bristol, and so I don't know if it's like a UK thing, a Bristol thing, but I've been seeing so many of these, and I feel like when I'm back in New York, I never see these kinds of dogs. So it's very interesting. I'm also a huge dog person. And I miss my dog so much. Leanne and I keep saying how much we miss Willow. If you don't know who Willow is, I will put a picture of my precious Willow. Oh my gosh, I miss her so much. Another aspect about this book that I really enjoyed was Ivan's relationship, or the characters' relationships, with chess, because Ivan, one of the brothers, is a very good chess player. He participates in a lot of competitions, and it was interesting to see how he perceived himself as a chess player. There's interesting conversation around that. And then also, one of my absolute favorite parts about this book was how Sally Rooney spoke about grief and how the topics around grief were handled. They were handled in such a genuine, authentic, and true way, and it felt so believable and also heartbreaking. And the ending, I don't want to say too much, but the ending, the words that were spoken, it was just so beautiful to see these characters grow and deal with what's happening, and I just loved it. So anyway, I feel like I've just been babbling on and on and on. I just feel like it's such a beautiful, powerful story that people will get a lot out of. This next book is one of the first books that I bought when I got here to England, and I already started it and finished it in October, and that is All the Lovers in the Night by Meiko Kawakami, and it is translated from the Japanese by Sam Bett and David Boyd. Meiko Kawakami is one of my favorite writers, and this is one of the last stories that I have to read from her that's been translated into English, and it was so beautifully written. Oh my god, it was heartbreaking, devastating, hard to read at times. We are following our main character, who is in her 30s, and she works as a proofreader, and she's very isolated. She doesn't have a lot of friends. She doesn't talk to her family. She is just very isolated, but she's kind of okay with that. She seems to be happy in her isolation, or at least feels very uncomfortable when she's put into social situations. And so she's a very unique character, because it almost felt like you understood where she was coming from, but you also didn't really understand where she was mentally. And it's about her meeting someone new and grappling with her feelings towards that person. And also it touches on topics of alcoholism, but it's not really addressed. Like, it is addressed, but it's not addressed. There is also trigger warnings surrounding sexual assault. So this is quite a heavy book, but it's beautifully written and beautifully handled, I felt. I just adore her writing. It's absolutely beautiful, and to share it with you, I want to read you the first page, even before, I think this is even before chapter 1. Yeah, so chapter 1 starts on this page, but it's this page that is so beautiful. I also annotated every single page of this book. I started reading it without the intention of annotating it, and then I just ended up annotating it. So anyway, the first page says, "Why does the night have to be so beautiful? As I walk through the night, I remember what Mitsusuka said to me, because at night only half the world remains. I count the lights, all the lights of the night, the red light at the intersection trembling as if wet, even though it isn't raining. Street light after street light, tail lights trailing off into the distance, the soft glow from the windows, phones in the hands of people just arriving home, and people just about to go somewhere. Why is the night so beautiful? Why does it shine the way it does? Why is the night made up entirely of light? The music flows from the earphones filling my ears, filling me. It becomes everything, a lullaby, a gorgeous piano lullaby. What a wonderful piece of music, it really is. It's my favorite piece by Chopin. Did you like it too, Fuyuko? Yeah, it's like the night is breathing, like the sound of melted light. The light at night is special because the overwhelming light of day has left us, and the remaining half draws on everything it has to keep the world around us bright. You're right, Mitsusuka. It isn't anything, but it's so beautiful that I could cry." Oh, goodness gracious. It's just absolutely breathtaking. It is a breathtakingly written book, and I really loved it. Again, it is kind of a darker, harder book to read at times, but it's absolutely beautiful, and there is so much light. Even in the darkness, there is hope still. Then the fourth book that I started and finished in October, I just read 2 days ago? Not yesterday, but the day before, and that is Claire Keegan's The Forester's Daughter. This is a short story from the Faber Stories collection from the publisher Faber, and I love these editions so much. This is a short story that I don't want to say too much about, but it's kind of like quintessential Irish literature. So Claire Keegan is a fantastic contemporary Irish author. She is a writer of novellas as well as short stories, and this is one short story that can also be found in her collection of stories called Walk the Blue Fields. I guess quintessential Claire Keegan in my eyes is a couple who aren't completely happy in their relationship, as well as topics on like femininity and masculinity and marriage and faithfulness, religion, loyalty. I don't want to say too much because this is such a short story, but I thought that it was beautifully written. I love Claire Keegan's writing. I do feel like now that I have read so much from her, I can kind of assume or guess where her stories are going or are going to go. Also, sorry if the reflection from the sun is looking weird on my face. I can't do too much about it, so we're just gonna have to deal. I'm also kind of just enjoying being in the sun. So anyway, there's one line that I love that is describing the forester's daughter, this young girl, and it says, "It was the girl who had the brains. The girl who traveled through youth, same as youth was a warm stretch of water she could easily cross." I love that. Same as youth was a warm stretch of water she could easily cross. It's just so beautiful. This lighting is really bothering me. Maybe I could just scoot over a little bit. I think that's a bit better. So those are all the books that I started and finished in October, and now I have a stack of 3 books that I'm currently in the middle of. This first book was inspired by Leon and I coming from London to Bristol and taking the train at Paddington Station, and I saw this book when we were in Bristol, and I thought it was finally time for me to read this very well-loved story, and that is Paddington. So this is Love from Paddington, Letters from London to Peru by Michael Bond, and it is illustrated by Peggy Fortnum and R.W. Alley. And this is a collection of letters. Paddington writes these letters to his Aunt Lucy in Peru, and Aunt Lucy writes back, but it's mainly Paddington's letters from London to his Aunt Lucy, talking about the adventures and things that he gets up to, and I'm adoring it. Leon and I are reading these letters together. We read one letter every couple nights, and it's such a nice like evening tradition that we have going. An evening ritual, and I am loving it. Something that's quite funny is Leon didn't realize that Paddington was from Peru, and I have watched the Paddington movies, so I did know that he was from Peru because they say it in the movies. Leon thought that Paddington was just from the UK, and then he asked his parents, and they also thought that he was just from the UK. So if you are also unaware, Paddington is actually from Peru, but his Aunt Lucy sends him from Peru to London, I think to just like experience more of life and travel, and anyway, I just am loving these letters so much. Paddington is such a wonderful story. The writing is so sweet and funny and witty and clever, and I'm just really enjoying it, and so is Leon. So we're both really enjoying it, and I highly recommend if you haven't read Paddington. This isn't the first book in the series. I think the first book in the series is just called A Bear Called Paddington. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I really wanted to read this one because I loved this edition, and this is just, I feel like a good place to start even if you haven't read any Paddington. The next book is another one that I am reading by myself, but Leon has also joined me for 2 of the stories, and that is The Complete Brambly Hedge by Jill Barklem. So this collection has a few of the stories in here. So Brambly Hedge is an iconic series about this family or different families of mice living in this hedge, and they all live in different trees, and it's such a sweet story. I'm loving it so much. So first we have the introduction. So the main series is spring, summer, autumn, and winter, but then this collection also has a few of the other stories that are titled The Secret Staircase, The High Hills, Sea Story, and Poppy's Babies. And the illustrations are truly breathtaking and so inspiring. This story just feels so me. It feels so Carolyn, and I am loving every page of it. Last night, Leon and I read Winter Story, and we both agreed that that one was our favorite so far. So highly recommend these. They're so sweet, they're so beautiful, and it's so nice to have a collection of short, sweet little stories that you can just read over time. You know when you read something and the time that you spent reading it feels special. Like that's what Paddington and this book feels like, so I highly recommend it. Then the final book that I have to tell you guys about is a very, very exciting read because it is the first book that we are reading for the Well-Read Book Club. So if you missed it, I started my very own book club, which is hosted on Fable. If you would like to join, a link will be in the description. It is a monthly book club where we get well-read, and my last name, Leon's last name, is Wellstead, so it is a book club where you can get well-read with the Wellsteads. That's our little slogan. How I have been defining well-read for the book club is someone that reads from a wide variety of genres. So the theme or the goal of the book club is to read from a different genre every month, and then I'll pick 4 books and you guys can vote on the book that we read. And the book that we are reading for November is Howl's Moving Castle by Diana Wynne Jones. And I am already more than halfway through because I started it in October, and I have been flying through it as if I am wearing 7-league boots. If you have read this book, then you will understand the reference. But I am just loving this so much, I can't even express it. I am filming a whole reading vlog about this book, so I won't go into too much depth here, but I am loving it more than I could have ever expected. It's so whimsical, it's so magical. I have watched the Studio Ghibli movie. I watched it years ago, only once. So I remember it, I remember falling in love with it, I loved it so much, but I don't remember every detail, and I'm glad because then I can't like nitpick the differences between them. And then once I finish this, I am planning on rewatching the movie, and Leon has never seen it, so we're gonna watch it together, so that'll be fun. But I am just simply adoring it. This book is so fun and enchanting and whimsical and beautiful and gorgeously written. It's very humorous and imaginative, and I'm just loving it. So I'm really excited that we can read this together in the book club. I have been loving talking to you guys on Fable and just hearing what you think and sharing my thoughts. It's just so fun, and I am incredibly excited to start this new journey, this new reading journey with you guys for the Well-Read Book Club, and I am having an absolute blast. So thank you to everyone who has been joining. Right now, I think we have about over 1,800 members, which is unbelievable because I really didn't think that anyone would join. I didn't know if anyone would really want to join. So I'm honored to have so many of you join me. So just thank you so much if you have joined. Anyway, I will save the rest of my thoughts on Howl for my vlog, but I'm loving it. So these are all the books that I had to tell you guys about today that I have been starting and finishing and continuing to read in October and into November. Again, I would love to know what you guys have been reading, so definitely share that with me in the comments. And if you have read any of these, what do you think about them? If you haven't, are you interested in now reading them based on what I have said about them? Let me know. And I just hope you're having a fantastic day. I hope you had a wonderful October, and I hope you have an even better November. I am sending you all of my love and best wishes, and I will see you very soon in another video. And as always, happy reading.